Namaskar. Jealousy. You probably don't need me to tell you that it's poisonous to your relationships, that it lowers your self-esteem, creates anxiety. It's considered in yoga to be one of the 6 enemies of the mind, which means it's something that we always have to be conscious to struggle against. However, is there a time when jealousy can actually accelerate your spiritual growth? I'm going to share the story of Tumburu and Narayan, and also a really personal story about this. Once Swami Narayan had gathered all his devotees around, and he was giving them some advice, telling them that, really where there's an assembly of devotees of God, there should be no jealousy amongst you. And then one of them said, "Excuse me, but sometimes there still is jealousy." Then he said, "Well, then your jealousy should be like that of Narayan for Tumburu." And he proceeded to tell the story. So Narayan was actually the teacher of Tumburu. He was the one who taught him all the yogic disciplines. And once they went before the god Vishnu, and Tumburu began to sing. And his singing was so beautiful. It was just melting the heart of God, and he was showering him with some divine blessings. And Narayan saw this, his own student, attracting so much grace, and he was jealous. He was like, I would love to please God like that. I wish that I could sing like Tumburu. And so he became determined to learn singing. And, God was kind of like, all right. And he sent him an owl named Ganabandhu to teach him. But when he came back to visit God, he was surrounded by wounded and crying people who he later, to his humiliation, discovered were the ragas and raginis that had been wounded by his bad singing. So this was really disappointing to him. And then he thought, no, I must learn to sing even better than Tumburu. And he went to more advanced, singing teachers. And he really tried hard. He was really, really trying his best to learn the art of singing. And he went before God to sing again. And still, God was not satisfied, was not pleased. He was like, no, your singing, it's not like Tumburu. Now he was really disappointed because he'd been spending already years at cultivating the art of music, and he felt that he'd really improved. Finally, he went to Tumburu himself and he said, "Please, you teach me to sing." He went before his own student. "You teach me how to sing. Teach me the secret of melting the heart of God with music." And then he learned from Tumburu, and he went before God, and when he sang, God was very pleased. The story has many beautiful meanings. I love it that in the end, he couldn't succeed when his mind was set on being better than Tumburu, conquering him. Rather, the secret to his success was to go and learn directly from the person he was jealous of and humble his ego that way. So when we're jealous, we can actually go and learn that quality from the person. Especially in this case, why was this case jealousy not toxic? It was because it wasn't jealousy, oh, he's more beautiful than I am, he has more money than I do. It wasn't materialistic. It was because he was better at attracting God's grace. And so this, when we focus on somebody's quality, we can also gain that quality. I want to share my own personal experience of spiritual jealousy. I came to a retreat in Sweden, the same place where I had done my training, and I was really looking forward to it. I had been going through a very, very difficult part of my life and had a lot of disappointment and sadness in my heart. And I was looking forward to arriving in Sweden and seeing the land just carpeted in the purifying, glistening white snow, something about white snow that just seems to give my mind a sense of purity and peace. And I came to Sweden and everything was muddy, no snow. I go to sit for meditation that morning and I feel so sad, so disappointed, so far away from any feeling of bliss or personal feeling of connection to God. I just felt so heavy. And on top of it, I have these colleagues, other Didis. They were enjoying some amazing kinds of spiritual grace and easily falling into samadhi. They were just falling into states of absorption, trance, blissfulness. You could see the radiation of bliss. And this was happening that morning. As we sang kirtan and so I sat down to meditate, they were still singing. It was a long, long chanting session, several hours, actually several days, day and night. But it was the first day. And I heard, as I was meditating, the sound of kind of like someone falling down. And I felt, without opening my eyes, I felt a really powerfully uplifting vibration. And I briefly opened my eyes and I saw, oh, she's in samadhi again. And I was jealous. Like, I don't know, I feel so far away. I feel so sad. They're going into samadhi so easily. It's nice for them, but I feel so sad. Anyway, I did my meditation. And somehow that energy in the room was very powerful, very uplifting. It makes it seem, instead of just like, oh yeah, I'm meditating and someday maybe I'll get there. When somebody falls into that state, it feels so much more close. And I opened my eyes at the end of meditation. And to my delight, it had begun to snow and the land was becoming white. It was already white. And I felt so much better. I already felt so much more uplifted. To my surprise, about an hour later, this Didi, she comes up to me and she's like very serious. Her face is extremely serious. And she's like, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, did I do something wrong? I had that kind of sensation. What happened? Did I do something wrong? And we sat together and she was saying to me, I have to tell you something very important. I have a message for you from our guru. And I'm like, from the guru? So, and she tells me, when I went into samadhi, Guru gave me a message for you. She said, you see, because she had this feeling in her state, like, oh, everyone should feel like this. And he said, I'm here for everyone. But you see, Deva Priya, for example, she's carrying such a heavy load, such a big burden, so she can't feel me. And then she said, I don't know why you were in my samadhi. It was my experience, and he's talking about you. And I was so surprised. And she said, I think you're next. And I'm like, what do you mean? I think you're going to go in samadhi next. That was maybe the worst thing she could have said on one level, because for the rest of the retreat, indeed, my mind, from that moment when she told me this, she's carrying such a heavy burden, I felt so seen, so touched, so not alone. Like, I really felt that divine presence with me. And when I would sit to meditate, I'd even imagine, before I began my meditation process, kind of like I had a heavy backpack on, and I'd imagine putting it down, and then I'd meditate. But my mind was really going up, really getting so focused, so concentrated, and so blissful. And then, just as it would be getting extremely blissful, I would think, oh, maybe it's going to happen. Boom, and it would stop, because I'd stop thinking about the goal of my meditation, and rather I'm thinking about, oh, I might get this. So it was still an experience that greatly accelerated my speed, that whole retreat. And it started out with some jealousy, and with getting a kind of blessing from the very person that I had felt some jealousy towards. So jealousy generally is very toxic, like I said in the beginning. But if you have to be jealous, better to be jealous about a spiritual quality and to aspire towards it and to become close to the person you're jealous of, so that you can learn and absorb and develop that quality in yourself. To neutralize jealousy, you should take the opposite stance. So the opposite stance to jealousy is to be happy for others. How beautiful that they have success. She's my friend. I wish her well. I wish her to be more and more successful. Let her be more and more blessed with success. This, if you're struggling with jealousy in a more petty way, it's making your mind contracted, it's making your mind petty, it's getting in the way of your good relationships, it's poisoning you, then cultivate the opposite quality. Cultivate that happiness for other people's happiness. Really reprogram that script. You can't just indulge in things. They will get worse. You have to try to work with them, work with your mind. Meditation by itself isn't enough. That's why we talk about other things besides meditation itself, because if your mind is getting disturbed by jealousy, hatred, anger, you can't sit and meditate. So learning to meditate is also learning to deal with your psychology. And part of it is to take control of your psychology. When you feel a negative tendency coming, oppose it. Cultivate consciously the opposite frame of mind, and cultivate that generosity of spirit where you are delighted by other people's success. You bless other people's success, and let it also accelerate your own spiritual development. Namaskar.